stronger and create stronger and better crews. So the other thing that we have is a forward-facing model, a public-facing model of stress first aid, which is called Curbside Manner. And it's another reason why I really love this model, because it's the very same things that we teach our responders to do for the customers that they serve. We're saying now, how about you do that for yourself as well? Take care of you, take care of your buddies, take care of your crew. And if you're a leader, part of your responsibility is taking care of your people. So it was developed, as I said, for people in high-risk occupations, started in the military, has made its way out to public safety. It's got 7 actions, and I'm going to talk about the 5 core actions, and then we'll talk about the other 2 as a wraparound. But there are 7 actions, and they are really just designed to help people identify early signs. And I think that's the critical piece. Early signs of stress reactions. Hopefully we're self-aware enough to see it in ourselves, but certainly in others. And if you're a supervisor, a company officer, a battalion chief, a chief, to recognize it in other people. And I think what's different about this is not a model where we say, oh, we just ran a difficult call, often called critical incidents, we should do something. This isn't just for those potentially traumatic events. So we've moved away from talking about critical incidents so much as listening to the people who are experts in trauma who talk about potentially traumatic events, because we're all different. And what might bother me today, you know, the rest of the people that are working may have no reaction whatsoever. So this is a way of paying attention, having your finger on the pulse of your personnel and yourself, so that we can enhance and help people be well and stay well throughout a career. And the easiest way I can explain, I mean, we have lots of stuff going on in the fire service now where we talk about all kinds of behavioral health issues that are very common to fire service. But I like to say the reason why we would use a stress first aid model is because life is complicated and it can be really messy. Most of us can attest to that. And just when you think things are going great, there'll be something that shows up. And so this is the kind of skill base that people can use throughout their life to take care of themselves and have a healthy, happy career, hopefully. One of the basics of stress first aid is looking at the 4 causes of stress injury. And stress injury, thank goodness, there's only 4 ways to get it. We could get lots of stress in our lives, but to have a stress injury, which we'll talk about the difference between an injury and a reaction in a minute, but there's only 4 ways to get that. And what we typically focused on when we talked about critical incident stress management was just the life threat piece. And we all know that fire service is full of opportunities for people to see things that can at some points be horrific and sometimes make people feel a sense of helplessness. You can also suffer a grief injury. Grief injuries are not just the loss of somebody that we love. It could be the loss. I just spoke to somebody today who was passed over for a promotion and really had his heart set on it. So you can have a loss injury from something like that. You can have a loss injury from the loss of a relationship, from the loss of some part of yourself. Moral injury is an inner conflict injury. These are the injuries that we talk about very much with our military veterans. It's sort of the front and center of what military veterans come in with. But moral injuries are just witnessing behaviors that violate your moral values. It's either doing something that violates your values or witnessing something that violates your values. And last but not least, what we used to call burnout, we now call wear and tear. And certainly wear and tear comes from all sources in our life. It's typically not just work or home. It's typically an overlay of both things. And we find that people are just worn out. This is a problem in our system in Prince William County for medics. I think we probably have that issue all over the country, but it certainly is something for us to keep an eye on. So when you look at those 4 stress injuries, what are the things you think are most common where you are? Hello there, Bruce Farner. Nobody's going to speak, huh?
Hi, how are you, Vicky?
Anything that you see in your own systems that you say, we've got a lot of that.
I think widespread wear and tear.
Yeah. Yeah, in our system, in our counseling center, we just track what people come in with. And because our service is sponsored entirely by our county, we don't bill anyone, which means we don't have to bill insurance, which means we have a lot of leeway. And we look a lot at what stress injury are people coming in with. And the biggest ones are wear and tear and inner conflict. Those are the things where people leave a scene. Sort of the hallmark of moral injuries are, I should have, I could have, if only I would have, it must be my fault, if only we'd turned left instead of right, if we had done this, if we'd gotten there 2 minutes earlier. And that sort of rolling it around in your head over and over and over again without a way to resolve that often leads to people showing up in our office. So those are the things we see. But I like to tell people having a stress injury is really no big deal. We've all had them. If you're honest, most of them, most of us by adulthood have had all of these stress injuries and will have them again. But anybody who lives a life of service is going to have a stress injury at some point. You get battle scars by doing this kind of work. But you know what? We heal from stress injury all the time and we move forward. And part of our hope in removing the stigma of people requesting help and getting support when they're feeling like maybe their mental health is a little shaky is saying, hey, we all have stress injury. You just get a double chance if you're a public servant, because you have your own life where you can have any one of these things happen. And you also step into other people's worst days where you get to witness things that can be very hard to deal with. So one of the other pieces that is the underpinning of stress first aid is the stress continuum. Actually, this is the Marine Corps had this stress continuum when they asked the National Center for PTSD to help them create a program. They wanted a program that surrounded this stress continuum. And really, it looks like all of these columns are very discrete, but they're not. It's much more fluid than this. But it gives us a way of just saying, where am I right now? What's happening in my life? Am I in the green zone? And don't overestimate being in the green zone. Green zone doesn't mean life is perfect. But green zone means, you know what, we're ready for, we're mission fit. We're ready to do what we need to do. And our coping skills are working. So hopefully people, you know, most of us at work don't live in the green zone, but we have moments or hours, hopefully. Certainly when you're on vacation, you're hoping you're in the green zone. That's when we're really thriving. And when we're like, hey, you know what? Things aren't perfect, but I've got this. Reacting is just normal, everyday stress reactions. Yellow is probably the new green. Many of us live in this zone. I work with somebody who says, I live in the yellow zone. That's just where I live and I feel kind of comfortable there. But this is not a high risk stress unless it's unrelenting. For some people in the yellow zone, it can make you focus better. It's not all negative. But and it does make you more alert for threats. Some people say, hey, you know, when I'm in the yellow zone, I have increased energy because I'm looking around, I'm seeing what I need to do. Most of our life is filled with yellow zone stress. Yellow zone stress is, you know, you thought you were getting off on time because you wanted to go see your kid's soccer game, and a late call comes in, and then people are scrambling. Now, when we get to orange zone stress, this is when we're talking stress injury. So remember those 4 causes of stress injury. This is where we're asking ourselves, wonder what's going on, what happened with this person or is happening with this person. Orange zone injuries can leave a scar. We've all probably had them. You might feel rage, you might feel panic, you might have a short fuse, you might just not feel like yourself. You might not like your behavior. We had somebody who came into our center the other day and said, the reason I'm here is because I don't recognize myself anymore. And when we asked, so tell us an example, he said, you know what? I bit my kid's face off for spilling his milk at dinner. He's 5. 5-year-olds spill their milk. That told me there's something going on here, and I'm overreacting, and I've done it more than once. These are folks that perhaps around a station environment will be disengaged or isolated, much more prone to negativity and complaining. And in the most excessive cases, we begin to see misconduct. And then we get to the red zone. Red zone is, you know, when we're really struggling. So red zone people have at that point a diagnosable clinical condition. It might be depression, it might be anxiety, it might be a substance use disorder, it might be trauma related. Those are the 4 things in the fire service that are most common. But these are places where typically if people don't get help, and does everybody need professional help that goes to the red zone? Nope. Some people work their way out of it. But typically we find that people that get to red zone need some professional help. And the job of fire service peers and officers is to help people just make that bridge to get the assistance that they need so we can keep them safe. Remember when we started, we talked about that critical ingredient and that need to be able to focus under high demand. So if you're in the red zone, you're distracted, and it's a safety issue. So we're just trying to help people stay safe, keep their crew safe, and have the highest level of wellness they can have in their career. If you're a fan of Mark Manson, and you know, he was the first person, I think, to write a book that had one of the 4-letter words you're never supposed to say in it. Great book, right? But he says stress reactions are just signals. They just nudge us in the direction of saying, hey, you need to pay attention here. There's something going on that you're not addressing. It's just a call to action. And so when we do training, that's what we're telling people is there's nothing to be afraid of here. It's just if you're having some sort of stress reaction that you recognize or other people recognize in you, it just means that there's something that needs to be taken care of. How do we know when people are in the orange zone? We've tried to really simplify it by saying, just look at somebody's life and see what are their recent stressor events. This is a really big issue and it's one of those things where we say, once again, I talked to a division chief today who said, you know, good officers know tactics and they know how to run a fire ground and they know strategy and they know all of those things, and great officers know their people. And so this is one of those times when it really pays to know your people, because the recent stress that they have might simply be something at home. It might not be any work-related event. It could be they're going through a divorce. It could be that they're taking care of their grandmother who's in hospice. There could be any number of things going on. It could be that their kids are in trouble. What else do we look for in the orange zone? Signs of distress. Another good reason for supervisors, particularly company officers, knowing their people. So that is a different way that that person is acting. We don't typically see firefighters curled up in the corner crying. We have, but we don't usually. Typically, we see things more like anger, total like negativity about everything. We start to see people biting the face off of their customers when they're running calls. So just looking for those pieces that tell you that somebody is in distress, there's something going on, a change in functioning. People are showing up right under the wire for their shift where they used to come early. People are they're not volunteering for things. They're not taking part in, they don't want to sit at the table and have lunch or dinner or be around people. Any change in functioning. Person that doesn't talk much is now chatty Cathy. The person that talks all the time is now really quiet. So all of these things make it fairly easy. We tell our folks, you don't have to be a mental health professional. That's what we do. And you can refer to us. You don't have to know, is the person depressed or anxious, or what you need to know is there's something going on here and they're not their usual self. And if they're not their usual self, their ability to perform to their highest ability on the job could be impaired. We always ask every class we teach, who in here wants to be a C- firefighter or a C- medic? Nobody ever raises their hand, of course, because I mean, the great thing about the fire service is it attracts people who like excellence. And so we're just looking at the things that might tell us that something is taking away some of that energy from the job at hand. The other reason I really love this framework is that most public safety people who need assistance are going to depend on other public safety folks to point them in the right direction. They are truly gonna depend on buddy care or somebody noticing. We often say when we meet as a team, boy, if we had a nickel for every person that came and plunked down in a chair in our office and said, I wouldn't be here because I thought I was hiding, that I was stressed. But my buddy or my officer took me aside and said, hey, man, you seem like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. Is everything okay? Is there something that I can do to help? You seem distracted these days, and I want to make sure that your head's in the game here. We've got a lot of resources. Let me help you get to one. Is there something that I can do? And so now to the power of 5. This whole stress first aid framework was built on those 4 sources of stress injury, and then being able to kind of tell where we are on the stress continuum. And then what do? Okay, we notice that somebody is dark yellow going into orange or red. What do? Well, stress first aid came out of research from the best trauma informed and trauma researchers in the world. Probably 50 to 60 of them got together in 2006, and they spent a year saying, you know what are the things that we know from research help people recover from really tough times and really stressful days? What really encourages our well-being? And after they did that and they came back together, what they found were there were 5 themes. And I love to tell people this is kind of your job description in the fire service. First is a sense of safety, exactly what people do when they arrive on a scene. They're thinking, first, we have to be safe. So let's have good situational awareness, figure out what's going on here before we all barge in. But you also do it with the people that you serve. You get them to safety. Calming. Well, calming probably has the most research behind it, and we know why. It's another skill that people who are serving the public have to have, because in order to get people to listen to you, and often to even get the information that you need, you have to help people regulate their emotions and calm down. Connection is just about feeling like I'm not in this alone. Often when our folks are running calls and there's a difficult thing going on for a family, they say, is there somebody you want to call? Is there somebody we can call for you? Would it be helpful if we had got a chaplain here? That's all about connection. Self-efficacy is simply about believing, hey, you know what, I can make it through this. And if I don't know exactly how to get through it, there are other people around me who will be kind and benevolent enough to point me in the direction of the resources I need, and then I'll be able to use those resources and I'll be able to move forward. And what does that do? It gives us a springboard towards hope, feeling confident in the future. So all of these things came out of the research, and then Stress First Aid was born out of them. I am very fond of saying to people, since you do this every day, we have countless stories of people talking about things they've done to serve Mrs. Smith, and wow, right? There are these 5 things. We say you did all those 5 things in what, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes that you were with this family. So you're doing it for those people. So now how about you do it for yourself and for your coworkers and for the people that you supervise? So that's how Stress First Aid came to be. And you see that the actions 3 through 7 are just the rework of those 5 things that came out of research. Safety just became cover. And then the rest, you have calm and you have connection. Self-efficacy becomes competence, feeling like we're competent to get through something. And hope becomes confidence. Confidence in yourself, confidence in your organization, in your leaders, and a sense of hope that tomorrow can feel a little better than today if you're struggling. So this framework, it looks very deceptive, I think, because it looks like you have to start at the beginning and go around the circle, but really you could start anywhere. You can start anywhere depending on what a person needs. And I'm going to talk about check and coordinate because really those are wraparound kinds of actions that we should be doing all the time that lead us to get to, I wonder if this person doesn't feel safe. I wonder if what we need to do is a little calming here. What about making sure everybody feels connected? What about a person who's questioning their competence, who's saying, maybe I shouldn't be in this job? What about a person who's saying, you know what, I feel betrayed. I feel betrayed by my organization. I feel betrayed I feel like I betrayed my crew because I didn't do the best job. So what are the things that people are struggling with? So if you look at these really quickly, because I'm not going to go into depth on them, cover is just safety, but it's more than just physical safety. I don't know of anywhere in the country where if a firefighter or a medic were in physical danger on a scene that another firefighter or medic would not step in to help them. That's just what you do. And it doesn't matter whether you like each other or not. It's like, oh no, we can't have injury. We don't want to have something that will produce an injury or a death. So that's kind of a no-brainer. But sometimes when people are stressed, they don't make good decisions and they put themselves in harm's way. So we're talking about cover when it comes to somebody with a stress injury. But think about it, because you could do this every day. You could do this as rehab when people need something after something stressful, or if they have an ongoing stressful event. And you could do it prehab, right? You could do it every day. How is it that in the station, I create an atmosphere where people feel safe, physically safe, psychologically safe, that they feel like, you know what, I like coming to work here. I work with people who have my back. They get me. And I don't have to be just like everybody, but you know what? We're a team here. That's I think the strength of the fire service, and it's the strength of the kitchen table. Calm is just about emotional regulation, and it doesn't matter whether it's being sad, so sad that you're depressed, upset, crying, or angry and in a rage. or anything in between. It's just about helping people slow down, take a deep breath. This is like emotional rehab, if you will, calming people down. When you go to rehab, as you all know much better than I do, you're wanting to make sure people's vitals are slowing down, our blood pressure's dropping, our respirations are okay, we're hydrated. This emotional regulation is part of that as well. And how is it that we help folks? Because when you're ramped up, your blood pressure is up, your respirations are up. So how do we help people stay regulated, be calm, and return to a state of calm when they need to? I don't need to tell any of you how important calm is for an officer and how it can very much make the difference between a call that goes well because the officer is coming across the radio with a calm voice, and a call and a call where people begin to get a little anxious because the officer sounds anxious. So calm is a huge deal. Connect is just about who's in your corner, who's got your six. Hopefully your crew does, hopefully your company officer does, your battalion chief does. Hopefully you have family and friends and people in your world that you can depend on when the going gets tough. But as one of our police officers here who was egregiously wounded in a shooting and eventually had to retire, he said, he's done so incredibly well. And I asked him, how do you account for that? And he said, well, I'll tell you. Don't wait until you're laying in an ICU with tubes coming out of every orifice of your body, wondering if you're going to live to see the next day, to think about, do you have your life in order? He said, actually, I had great friends. I had really good connections to the people on my squad. My sergeant was the best person on the planet. I went to the same church I grew up in. So I had a lot going for me. It was already in place. And so I like stress first aid because yes, we can roll it out when we've had a call that challenges people. But if you do it every day, you're building people's resilience and their resistance to these kinds of events and the ability to have enough social support to make it through. Competence is just about skills and resources that we need to succeed. Typically, when we have a stress injury and our competence is called into question, it shows up in one of these three areas. It either shows up in occupational skills where you're watching somebody and you're going, wow, that person has always been able to do this skill and do it really well. Wonder what's going on now because you're seeing, or somebody says, I can't remember how to do that. I don't remember how to fill out that form. I don't remember how to do this skill. Sometimes that can be a stress injury. Interpersonally, that's when our personal lives begin to get strained. And so we see people with stress injuries often showing up with fewer interpersonal skills. And now what happens? They start to alienate the people around them. Sometimes stress injured people are the people that folks in the firehouse are like, ugh, this person is so difficult to deal with. And often it's because they have a stress injury. So we're trying to help people to say, well, let's see, when did that start? And what could we do to get the resources around that person that they need? And then last but not least, sometimes our skills get impacted in our self-care area. We say, you know what, I know what I should do. I know I should talk to somebody. I know maybe I should go for a run or go for a walk or go fishing or do something to take care of myself. I know I should try to eat healthy instead of eating this bag of Oreos, but too bad. And you know what? We all have a day or two like that, but we're talking about as time goes on, you're starting to see people coming in looking a little disheveled, looking like they're not taking care of themselves. That may be a sign of a stress injury that has impacted a person's sense of competence. Confidence is the biggie. Confidence, I have come to really focus on this a lot with people because confidence is really believing in the mission, remembering why you came there, When I have people who say, hey, I got my retirement clock on right here on my cell phone, and I'm like, oh, when are you retiring? And they say 10 years, 8 months, 6 weeks. I'm like, okay, we got a problem here, right? There, people have lost their North Star. So what's the mission? How do we help people every single day stay connected to that? Remember that what they're doing is important. I listened to the news this morning. They said in our area, 85% of medics will at some point be assaulted on the job. That is astounding, right? So how is it that we help people keep their eye on the ball, remember what they're doing is important, be connected to the organization, have leadership that people trust and believe in, the belief in coworkers. This is also about the ability to find meaning in challenging situations. It's how do we work our way through this, because we just had a meeting this morning with a bunch of firefighters where they said, listen, there are things we see that are sad, but being sad doesn't mean you necessarily have a stress injury. Let's just say it's okay to be sad. If we go to one of those events, it's a problem when 6 weeks later, we're saying to ourselves, if only I'd done this, if only I had done that, maybe things would have turned out differently. So those two wraparound actions that were at the beginning, check and coordinate, that's just what I like to call psychological situational awareness. Be aware of yourself. Be aware of the people that you work with. Know what signs they have. I met with the captain today. He's a newly promoted captain, and he's just a great guy. And he said, we're doing this as a crew. He said, everybody comes, one of my first weeks, we came to the kitchen table and we all had a conversation about how will you know if I'm stressed? Here's some signs. So they're actually having a conversation and normalizing it right at the kitchen table. That is the strength of the fire service. Know your people, get to know one another. And then coordinate is just what? Resource management. It's just knowing what's out there if somebody's struggling. What's out there if somebody has a kid that they found out is using opiates? What's out there if somebody is going through a divorce? What's out there if people are dealing with death in their family and they're struggling to get through that loss injury? What are the kinds of resources that we can wrap around people? We're really lucky in Prince William County. We're very resource rich. We have a county that puts a lot into wellness. We have peer teams in all of our public safety agencies. We have lots of training, and our county invested a good bit of money in our center in order to provide people with care that's easily accessible and doesn't cost them anything. One of the best ways to check on people is this. I always have to put a plug in, is to do a hot wash. When we have people that come in to see us because they're struggling with the aftermath of a difficult call, we always ask this question. Hey, did you guys do an after action? Did you do a hot wash? 99% of the time they say nope. And so that's what we do. We say, what did you set out to do? What did you think the call was? Was it the same thing when you got there, right? What are the things that you did well? Are there things that you think could have gone better? We never ask, what did you screw up? Are there things you think could get better? What would you do differently? And is there somebody else we need to give this information to? Does the safety officer need to know? Do we need a change in an SOP? Do we need to warn people about certain hazards that we are just finding out about? 9 times out of 10, we are halfway through this conversation with a person who is carrying a heavy load, usually a moral injury, about a call, and the light bulb goes off in their head and they go, oh, yeah, okay. We did everything we could do, and we actually did a pretty good job at it. It's just sad. And there's a difference in carrying that around as a responsibility, and I could have done better, and if only we would have saved this person's life, to, hey, you know what? We gave them the best chance we could, and we were kind and compassionate. And everybody that saw us working that day hopefully went away saying, wow, those are really great people. So why is it important? Well, I am a strong believer in this, in just getting these skills out to people because A, it's helpful for our own self-awareness. But sometimes support just comes in those moments where we self-reflect or in understandings between people, crews, couple of medics that ran the same call, or understandings between people who work together and understand that you're going through a tough time because your grandma is ill. Right. And sometimes it's only in that little moment where the right support can happen. Can we do it later in a therapist's office? I hope so. We do. But there's no replacement for the times when somebody takes a moment just to put a hand on your shoulder and say, hey, if you need to talk, I'm here. Looks like you got the weight of the world on your shoulders. I'm not trying to, get into your personal business, but if there's something I could do to help, I'll certainly do it. And let me tell you about the resources we have. So this is a framework that says seize the moment when you see it. We are really on a mission to try not to have that thing where we get a person that comes to us and they're now hanging on by their last claw, and they're typically in trouble with conduct. And we ask, how long has this been going on? And we get from an officer, oh, they've been like that for years. Like, okay, well, somebody failed in this mix then. We really want folks, there's personal accountability, and this certainly is not a framework that gives people a bye or says you're not responsible and accountable for your behavior. You certainly are, but sometimes when we're stress injured, we're the last ones to know. We think, oh no, I'm fine. So in summary, here's how I think about this framework of stress first aid, of those simple little actions. How do I help people feel safe, create an environment that feels physically and psychologically safe? And how do I do that when people are on scene, and make sure that if someone suffers a stress injury on a scene, that we are there to make sure they're safe? So first, it's just an intention. We're saying put it in the front of your mind and be intentional about it, right? And then don't be afraid to take action. Practice it every day. Practice it on yourself. Practice it with your crew. Do it consistently. That will create a habit. And then really it just becomes who you are. Stress first aid, if done well, is a way of life. It is simply a way of looking at each day and saying, what do I need to put into this day so that my crew, if I'm an officer or coworker, so that this is a safe place to work, so that it feels calming to be around here in the firehouse, so that we have connection and we promote connection with each other. We promote feeling competent. We don't rag on people who say, I don't feel like I can do that skill. We say, let's do a drill. Let's do more training. Let's use our hot wash to say what we might need to improve, and then do training on it so that we can keep people connected to the mission and the belief in what they're doing. Certainly in this day and age where we are all talking about recruitment and retention, we need all the skill we can get to help people remember what you do is critically important in the communities in which you live. And because of that, we are committed to taking care of you. So enough of me yammering away. Now it's time for you to talk, ask questions. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'm going to leave it on this slide. It's a quiet group.
Hey,
Yeah, hi,
Vicky.
Hi, Vicky. This is Chris Riley.
Hi, Chris.
Yeah, you did an outstanding job on this presentation. I took some notes, and you hit a lot of the points that things I've seen over the course of my career. So thank you very much. Outstanding job.
And I'm happy to share these slides with anybody. I have lots of material and information. And, you know, if there are things that we can do or I can do to be helpful to you, you want to bring it to your departments, please let me know. I'm happy to help in any way I can. W2, did you unmute?
Yeah, I had a question, but now I don't know where it fits. But you were talking about, I guess, coping, but one of the stressors I'd learned maybe from you years ago was the importance of eustress, which I guess is good stress.
Yep.
And how does that fit into your model?
You know, I think we have in many ways, we sort of overdid the whole stress thing because we have to have stress. Nobody would ever go for promotion because assessment centers are stressful. You know, people would never have children because raising kids is stressful. I have a guy I work with, he's got a new dog and he's like, if I'd known what this would be like, I would have never gotten a dog, right? But it's a good kind of stress. So I think that we need a certain amount of little push and challenge. Good supervisors know how to challenge people to get right up to right before they're really totally outside of their comfort zone to build skill. And we need that every day because that helps us build resilience. So we have, right, we have good stress, and then we have on the other end of the continuum, we have toxic stress. And I think this stress first aid model says, when we're in the green zone, a lot of times we have good stress. We're like, hey, I got the tiger by the tail, man. I got this. But we're learning, we're reaching, we're having to try harder. We're learning a new skill, but we feel competent to do it. And we're being successful and we have support around us to get it done. You know, as we get closer to the toxic end of stress, then you know, that's where we see that people feel really alienated and, you know, we end up with those people in our office. Oftentimes they think they have a wear and tear injury. They're just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm sick of this job. And then you start talking to them and it's not really the job. It's like, okay, well, you're just sick of running calls. No, actually the calls are the good part. And so it's like, okay, well, your station environment, that's within your control. Being a company officer is the best job in the world, I think, but it's a big job. Because you can, you know, you can make your own little environment right on that shift, right in that firehouse. And it can either be one where, Warren, we embrace stress and we say, hey, it's okay. I just had a conversation this morning with people about a very sad, we had, I don't know, it's been months now, 6 weeks ago, where we were running mutual aid to Fairfax. Kids, I think, were playing with matches. Grandparents were watching them. What a sad day. And the children were trapped. Our medics were the first medics on the scene, but the children had been rescued from the home, but had been in the home so long they were in arrest. Our medics worked them, brought them, got pulse, you know, respirations, got them to the hospital, and sadly the children were brain dead. And it became a big thing in the system, and I'm like, okay. Now, nobody will argue that that is a really sad call. It's sad for everybody. You just think about the grandparents, the parents were out. I mean, everybody. And there's 2 children who lost their life. So the whole thing is just, it's cloaked in sadness, and it's fine to acknowledge that. But I think what we miss sometimes is to then track back and say, but how well did you do your job? Were you satisfied with what you did? And when we talked to those medic crews, they were like, you know what? That was just one of those days where we were just clicking. We knew exactly what to do. You know, my partner and I have done this before. We were on. And so they felt really good about what they did. And I think we lose sight of that. And I think that's part of the job of a good company officer. And if an officer can't see it, then, you know, you got to call your next line, your battalion chief, sometimes our peer team, to say, help us see the outcome was not what anybody would have wanted. But if you equate your success in this work to outcomes, it is going to be a sad career. It really has to be to process, doesn't it? Like, how well did we execute? How well did we do the job? Are we satisfied with what we did? Did we give those kids the best chance to make it? And the answer was yes, they did. And then somebody actually said, and you know what else we did, was we gave the parents a chance to make decisions about their children and to do it in the hospital instead of in the front yard, seeing their children deceased. Yes, that's a huge, big deal. And so I think, yes, your point is a good one. And there's a lot of room for us to welcome stress into our lives and then say, hey, when we're over the edge and we're into the orange zone, it's time to take a timeout.
Vicki, this is your old friend Gordon.
Hey, Gordon.
How you doing?
Good.
You know what? Nobody does better than you what you're doing with the organization because you know the environment so well. My real interest is the people at the top of the organization. Most of the people on the call, I think, are chiefs or deputy chiefs and assistant chiefs, where it's not the frontline environment, it's the organizational environment.
Yep.
Which maybe has the same impact, but the stressors are different and the emotions are different.
Totally.
Do you have any advice for how to cope with the stresses at that level?
You know, I think these same actions apply. The problem is, as you know, I don't need to tell any of you on this call, the higher up the chain you go, the fewer people you have to talk to. Right? Because it's never good to vent to the level below you. So, you know, when you get to the chief and the deputy chief, your world becomes small unless you get a network. And that's why networks like what you have are so important. And having people at that level, that connection, if you will, because it is I mean, we have a new chief here. He is worth his weight in gold. And I'm telling you, it's lonely at the top, isn't it? There is lots of stuff to do. And so when you're trying to do budget, you're trying to keep politicians happy in a lot of cases. You're working with labor management. You're trying to make sure everybody's safe. We're keeping up with all the latest stuff. So I really think that chiefs, probably more than anybody, really need to think about, how is it that I make sure that I set up a way that I can be psychologically safe? Where's my little safe place? Who are my safe people that I can call, that I can talk to, that I can have an honest conversation with? Who, when you have that moment where you think, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be in this job, or what was I thinking when I signed up for this? How do you find people that help you navigate your way through that? Those pieces, because it is, I think, chiefs, as you know, are at such the strategic level and have to help people stay connected to the mission, to what we came here to do in the first place. And there are a lot of things going on in our world that are distractions these days. And how is it that you, as a chief, then communicate that down so that your officers are taking that down to the lowest levels, to keeping people clear about what did we come here to do in the first place? Because at that level, some days it's hard to remember we came here to be out here serving the community because there's so much other noise going on. I think your networking is critical.
Vicky, this is Chris Riley again.
Hi, Chris.
Yeah, hi. On the opposite end of the spectrum, how much, and maybe I hope I didn't miss it during your presentation, but how much front loading do you do this? Like, let's say with the recruits that you hire and they're in the academy, how much of this information is disseminated to them in terms of just preparing them for what lies ahead as their career evolves and the stressors that they face? And I guess along with that, like your officer development academy as well.
Yeah, we do it in all levels. So we're very blessed that our training academy gives us half a day. They actually give us 4 hours to spend with the recruits, and we talk about, hey, here's 5 things you want to put in place to take care of yourself and each other. And then they give us another day, an hour, just to talk about resources, so that we're able to share and tell people, here's all the things that are available to you. So they know that. That, I think, has been critical. We make our services available to recruits. We say, you're part of our department now, so if you need to come in and see one of the therapists, give us a call. And we are doing now training based on stress first aid, these just 5 little powerful concepts at all levels of officer development. And I think it's been I think it's been a good transition over time from a more reactive model of just responding to critical incidents to saying, you know what, as an officer, you have a lot on your plate, because your job is to create the environment on that shift in your firehouse. And how do you want that to look? And maybe here's some ways that you can think about creating an environment, because think about just, wow, if you if you had every officer that created an environment on their shift that said, hey, let's make sure everybody feels physically and psychologically safe. We don't have hazing. We don't have, people ostracizing one another. We're a crew. We have each other's back. We promote connection. We promote competence because we do a lot of training together. We help people with the things that they identify as their deficits. We help them get stronger. We know who's really good at what on a team. We continually remind people and help people keep that North Star about what did we come here for in the first place. Because it's easy to lose track of why you signed up to do this job. Much more now than when I started. I tell them in the dinosaurian era. Now there's a lot of distractions. And if your system is like ours, 911 is, a lot of people are calling 911, that our people are exhausted, not because the people really need, it's not a true emergency, it's an emergency to them. And right, so it is the right thing to do, but it's a wear and tear issue for people. So how do we help people see that, no, you know what, when you went out in the middle of the night to that person that's been sick for 2 days with the flu and doesn't really need to go to the hospital, but you know what, they don't have healthcare insurance, they don't have a primary care doctor, and you came and you were kind and compassionate and you did the right thing. Yes. And so we're trying to help our officers remind people, and what, all of you on here that got to be so lucky to sit at the knees of Alan Bernasini, this is what he taught us, isn't it? Is take care of each other and be nice.
Absolutely, Vicky. Bruno was an amazing mentor for all of us. And I'd like to thank you as the Vice President of the USA branch for IFE for your presentation. And I do think that Bruce Varner is on the line. And Bruce, if you would like to give a couple words. Bruce, if you're talking, you are on mute.
There,
Oh, there you are.
the space bar trick didn't work. Vicky is president of IFE, and I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Certainly, the message that you bring forth is timely. It's well needed. I'm sorry we don't have more people listening in today. When we look at things over our careers, and I started in the fire service in 1967. It was suck it up, Bucko.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it you look at the people that have suffered from trauma, and we all need, Brian, you echoed in there. Certainly Jay Gordon Routley is on the line. He and I worked together a lot in Phoenix, and
Yep.
we benefited from from a lot of things that Phoenix was kind of ahead of the crowd on. So again, thank you so very much. We greatly appreciate you, and we hope you can join us again in the future.
Thank you. Well, I enjoyed being here, and yes, I'd be happy to join you again. And thank you. Thank you for what all of you do. And if there's anything that I could ever do to be helpful, or you want more information, just let me know. I did send these slides to Piki, and she can send them out to all of you. And it's got my email, and feel free to reach out if there's anything that I could do to be helpful.
Oh, absolutely. I think we'll be reaching back out. And as a reminder, for IFE members, check your chat box. There is the link in there. If you click it, that will take you to where Chief Botwell can send you the continuing education certificate for 1 hour. So you can make sure you keep up on your recertification. And then also a copy of this presentation will be posted to IFE USA YouTube channel. And you can see the presentation anytime from there and send it out as company officer training. So with that, if there's anything else, I say we adjourn, Miss Vicky. What do you think?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One quick thing, Vicky, Laura would like to say hello.
Hey,
I asked about you earlier. How are you? Good?
I know he brought the computer inside so I could see you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Good to see you.